Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents You Should Smile More: How to Dismantle Gender Bias in the Workplace by Dawn Hudson, C. Nicholson, Mitzi Short, Katie Lacey, Lori Tauber Marcus, and Angelique Bellmer Krembs. Narrated by Lindsey Dorcus. Introduction. Why we wrote this book. A woman walks into a conference room for a meeting. Already at the table are two men, deep into a discussion of last night's football game. As more men enter, they join the sports talk. She's not a football fan. She waits patiently for the conversation to turn to business. Colleagues are talking about a new plum assignment that has come open. When a woman's name is mentioned, a man says, "Oh, she can't take it. She has 2 little kids." It's Bagel Tuesday, and the catered platters are wrapped and in the center of the conference table. Men enter the room, but nobody touches food. It's a cellophane standoff. It lingers until a woman arrives and unwraps the breakfast. If you are a woman in any of these situations, you may be feeling a whiff of gender bias, but not sure if or how to react. Or you could be a coworker who witnesses a slight and would like to be an ally. Or you're the boss, and you came up in a time when all these issues were discussed and debated and supposedly addressed, and all you can do is roll your eyes and think, "Really? Still?" What can you do? We are here to start a new conversation that answers that question. We are 6 C-suite women with a collective resume that covers 29 industries, from large corporates to small startups, holding most every title through the C-suite, including CEO, president, chief marketing officer, and dozens of boards and advisory positions. We have seen it all, from the bottom rung to the boardroom. We are using our real-world experience to call on all rising leaders and allies to unlock a culture of greatness for women in the workforce, one little thing at a time. You Should Smile More is a book about the workplace offenses many didn't know mattered, the small indignities, barriers, slights, many unconscious, that women face every day in the corporate workplace. They are not #MeToo moments, but they are not nothing either. They are the particles that collect around us and create barriers to our careers. They're the walls that go up, one grain of sand at a time. They are the moments that slow build until the unwelcome environment takes hold and women disengage. Ours is a guide, for women and for men, ready to take on the micro moments and advance women in the corporate workplace as equals. It is the how-to for dismantling everyday gender bias that continues to pervade the work world, from assumptions that keep us out of top jobs, to corporate getaways that always seem to feature sports, to meetings at which women are the ones asked to take notes, to greetings where men are offered a handshake and women a hug. We call ourselves the Band of Sisters, a name we gave ourselves after years of working together. We come to this teaching moment armed with a lifetime of experience and research. We 6 met over the course of a decade in various roles at PepsiCo. We've gotten to know each other well over the past 25 years. And in this book, you'll get to know us too. Dawn Hudson. At Pepsi. President and CEO Pepsi-Cola North America. CEO PepsiCo Food Service. CMO Pepsi-Cola North America. Post-Pepsi. Vice Chairman Parthenon. CMO National Football League, NFL. Today, Board Member NVIDIA, Interpublic Companies, and Roden and Fields. Angelique Bellmer Krembs. At Pepsi, VP Marketing, Pepsi U.S. Beverages Portfolio, VP Marketing, Trademark Pepsi Brand. Post-Pepsi, CMO, News America Marketing, fractional CMO to a portfolio of private equity-backed companies. Recent, Managing Director, Global Head of Brand at BlackRock. Katie Lacey. At Pepsi, VP Marketing, Carbonated Soft Drinks, VP Marketing, Colas and Media. Range of marketing roles at Pepsi-Cola and Frito-Lay. Post-Pepsi. President and CEO, Crane Stationery. SVP Marketing, ESPN. Today, Board Member, Designer Protein. Lori Tauber Marcus. At Pepsi, SVP, Marketing Activation. SVP and General Manager, Global Customer Development. Post-Pepsi. CMO, The Children's Place Retail Stores. EVP, Keurig, Green Mountain. Interim Global CMO, Peloton Interactive. Today, Board Member, Fresh Del Monte Produce, New York Stock Exchange, FDP, and 24-Hour Fitness. Nonprofit Board Director, Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation, MMRF, and Share Cancer Support. Advisor to early-stage, direct-to-consumer companies, and executive coach to C-suite executives. C. Nicholson. At Pepsi, CMO, Pepsi-Cola North America, VP Non-Carbonated Beverages, Pepsi-Cola North America. Post-Pepsi, CMO Equinox, CMO Softcard, investor and advisor to several startups. Today, Board Member, Selective Insurance Group, NASDAQ, SIGI, investor and advisor to several startups. Handstander. I am on a 20-year quest, 2015 to 2035, to do handstands all over the world. Instagram, @C. Nicholson. Mitzi Short. At Pepsi, VP and General Manager, PepsiCo Customer Team, VP Multicultural Marketing, VP Customer Sales West. Post-Pepsi, Co-Founder and Managing Partner, New Season Coaching and Consulting Group. Today, CEO, New Season Coaching and Consulting Group. Franchise Owner, Gulf Tech. Board Member, Fund for Education Abroad. We are your mentors on this journey, and we come to this job with a determined sense of purpose. We navigated our own career trajectories, and, as we rose into senior management, we mentored and supervised younger women. What's more, for the purposes of this book, the 6 of us set out on a listening tour to interview the next generation of women coming into the corporate ranks behind us. As we gathered our interviews and reviewed our findings, we were tempted to call this book Still? In horrified recognition that so much of what we faced in the workplace remains true today. In too many workplaces, men continue to dominate discussions, meetings, and executive offices. They allow assumptions about women that permeate decisions around promotions and hiring. They give themselves and each other the benefit of the doubt, while holding women to higher, often impossible, standards. For women of color, the bar is set even higher. We also ran our findings by the men in our work lives, and many of them, when confronted with the situations that made us fume, truly had no idea there was a problem. This despite the fact that there are many more women in corporate America than was the case when we 6 first entered the workplace. Women now make up more than 45% of the U.S. workforce and 56% of college students. 2/3 are white and 1/3 are women of color. The participation of women overall is equal to the EU and ahead of many Asian nations. Turns out, that number is deceiving. Hiring more women was only the first step. Creating a culture that allows them to work to their full potential is pending. With the volume of women at work, we have achieved gender diversity, but we have not achieved inclusion. In this book, you'll find easy-to-access sections. We see our listeners in 3 categories: women who want to make changes in their own work experiences, leaders who want to create inclusive workplaces, and witnesses, those who would like to be allies to women in the workplace. We want you to be able to say something when you see something. We will present listeners with a situation and then offer our take on how it might be addressed. We represent a range of tactical approaches. Some of us are more direct, others are more subtle. Listeners will be able to see for themselves which option works for them. In addition to our advice, we will offer the research of experts in the field who show how lingering gender bias is in fact a problem in the workplace, one that limits women in their advancement and companies in their quest for best talent. We have organized our book into sections, each of which identifies a sphere in which things go sideways for women in the workplace, from conversations to hiring and promotion discussions, and even in after-work drinks. After the heading of each section, we provide short chapters that state the specific problem, share stories of our experiences, and offer concrete solutions. We're writing this book as part of a larger business launch we call The Band of Sisters, a consultancy dedicated to facing down the issue of gender bias in the workplace. The lingering of gender bias, conscious or not, in the corporate world hurts us all. A company's culture is stimulated by the ideas, customs, and social behaviors of its individuals. When company values and behaviors aren't taking advantage of the diversity of thinking from all levels of the organization, they risk not optimizing the people they've hired. They risk devaluing their sense of importance. They risk disengaging employees and creating a poor work culture. Allowing women and all diverse people to realize their full potential is good for companies. Diversity breeds better solutions faster if people feel comfortable to freely express themselves and are comfortable in their environment. In the business world, barriers to inclusion are barriers to success. Women have lived through the battles around lawsuits and legislation. We have been part of the evolution of corporate diversity statements and public proclamations. We're at the point now where we, all of us, around conference tables and water coolers and Zoom meetings, must make the final push for change. We are not here to attack. We are experienced leaders, and we are here to spark new conversations that will lead to the behavioral changes necessary to bring about more diverse, equitable, and inclusive cultures. Here's how. Section 1. When they say... Often the biggest hurdles to women occur in casual conversation in the workplace. These are not official communications. Instead, they are the chatter of the day. They're what we say to each other in the hall, in the cafeteria, in the conference room before the meeting starts. The casual setting may lead us to take these moments lightly, but in fact, they create a tone and a framework that sets women at a disadvantage. Chapter 1. Who's the New Girl? How to Handle Casual Sexist Language. Did you meet the new girl in accounting? Thanks, dear. Well, isn't she feisty? The language is so casual, so prevalent, that you may hardly notice it. It's a diminutive, a tiny word, dropped into the sea of discussion that flows through an office daily. Compared to the work to be done, the challenges to be faced, those words seem small. Most days, you may not even notice them. Gender-biased wording is so pervasive, pushing it back may seem like embracing air. How many times a day do you hear a man use a term of endearment in conversation with a female colleague? How many times does a man use girl to describe a grown woman? How often do you care? It's a fair question. When held up against other issues, unequal pay, unwanted touching, lack of leadership opportunities, casual sexist language seems like a low-value target. Certainly, our media is full of the word girl, and it's often used in positive ways. You go, girl. Who really cares if a guy calls you honey, or the men refer to female colleagues as girls? But we open our book on improving culture with this topic, because with their very smallness, these words make our larger point. These tiny, seemingly insignificant words are exactly what we're talking about. Girl is just one example. These words are what make up the smallest particles of the workplace. Individually, they are negligible. But every day, everywhere, for years, they begin to cling together, forming a larger whole. Small words alone aren't harmful. It's their mass that makes them worrisome. When you hear them over years, they form a background noise you come to accept. They create an atmosphere that everyone, men and women, seems to embrace as okay. When the little words flow freely, the bigger barriers are eventually formed. Words matter. Men who think of their female colleagues as girls will hardly be accepting of them as CEO. We have noticed it in different ways. Sometimes it's subtle. The word girl is said every day in the workplace. Note C. Girl is the term for a female child or adolescent. The word woman is a term for an adult. People don't call a grown man a boy. It would be very odd to hear someone say, "We just hired a boy from Yale." When a group of adult women are dismissed as a bunch of girls, it feels to me like we're being talked down to in a condescending way. Sometimes, the word hits with a bang, as it did one day for Angelique. I have to admit, I didn't think this was a big deal. I hadn't remembered or noticed anyone addressing a woman as girl, though I was sure that if it happened, I would just calmly correct the offender and say, "You mean woman." But then it happened. A man in a small meeting said, "I know an expert we can bring in on this topic. There is a girl in the data department who would be great." He was referring to an award-winning scientist. And guess what? I froze, said nothing. It just went by. After the session, the only other woman in the meeting said, "I can't believe that happened. He called this award-winning scientist a girl." I'm sure that man has no idea how much the two women in that meeting are still thinking about that fleeting comment. The language issue shows no sign of abatement. When we interviewed women in the generation that followed us into the workplace, we heard similar tales. One woman, a veterinarian in her 30s, told us that people routinely forget to use her title. People address her male colleagues as Dr. Smith and Dr. Jones, but call her, instead, by her first name. She also noticed that when people do remember to use the doctor salutation, they often call her Dr. Jane, instead of using her last name. The wording does more than make us flinch. Research suggests that language is a brick in the wall, an element of everyday work that maintains a status quo of male power. A study conducted by a team from the University of Waterloo and Duke University reported gendered wording is an often unacknowledged way a company maintains institutional inequality. In other words, words are part of the larger problem. They are used to keep inequality in place. It's not just casual conversation. Sexist language is part of the larger infrastructure of many work cultures. A study from Walden University in Minnesota looked at the letters of recommendation drafted for women versus men. The letters for men used what researchers call agentic terms, words that convey agency and leadership. Examples: superb, excellent, assertive, dominant, strong, problem solver. The letters for women, on the other hand, used more communal terms, such as sympathetic, thoughtful, calm, and friendly. What do those word choices say to you? Deb Liu, a Silicon Valley executive, began compiling an interesting list during her time at Facebook. She began collecting male and female words or phrases she heard around the office, sometimes even from her own mouth. In the male column, she listed things like man up, ballsy, gentleman's agreement, and manpower. In the female column, were Run Like a Girl, Debbie Downer, and Diva. Even popular phrases in tech research came with gender baggage. Two guys in a garage was slang for startup, and would your mom be able to use this product was the standard benchmark for vetting an innovation, mom being the lowest common denominator of users. What surprised me was how deep our gender-specific language runs, Liu wrote in her essay on the topic. These words were not said with misogynistic or negative intent, but rather they were used in apparently innocuous ways. And then there are the words that everyone knows are criticisms directed only at women. Feisty, bossy, pushy, high maintenance, bitch. Words matter. Whether obviously hurtful or seemingly innocuous, words set the stage for the way women are treated. Titles and labels formed the basis for a South Korean study of gender-biased language in the workplace. The study, published in 2020, found words like freshman and chairman continue to pervade the academic world and are part of the non-parallel treatment afforded women and men in academia. There's even sexism in words that are left out. Consider the controversy started when an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal suggested First Lady Jill Biden not use her academic title, doctor, because she was not a medical doctor. Douglas M. Hoff, husband of Vice President Kamala Harris, posted on Twitter, "This story would never have been written about a man." Indeed, Amy Deal and Leanne Dubinsky, both PhDs, proposed a term for this, untitling. This is the practice of omitting titles when referring to women while still using them for men. It's a practice that diminishes women's authority and credibility, they write. The problem is that pointing out sexist language in a document, such as a job posting or a letter of recommendation, is relatively easy, at least compared to the daunting task of dealing with the issue in the midst of a conversation. Even women who would feel comfortable circling an offending term and showing it to the author might balk at the notion of interrupting someone in mid-sentence. That's the reason casual sexist language often gets a pass. How do we address this? What can we do about sexist language? If it's you, when you hear it, try C's strategy. I try to handle this situation in a friendly and non-combative way. I often repeat someone's exact sentence, substituting the word woman for girl. So, when they say, "There is a new girl who just started in accounting," I repeat back, "There is a new woman who just started in accounting." And then I smile to emphasize the point as gentle feedback. I find when I do this 2 to 3 times to an individual, they start catching themselves. Mitzi advocates for a direct approach. No need to sugarcoat the obvious, she says. When you hear it, say, "There are no girls in the workplace." How you say it matters. Tailor your language to the audience. Some appreciate hearing it straight, and others may need a more nuanced conversation. But calling out the language in the moment makes a powerful statement. Katie has an additional take on this issue, one that suggests men are not the only ones in need of a language update. I've heard women be the offenders of this one too. It's startling, and I usually don't hear what someone says right after it. We should make sure that we are not using the term ourselves. When we interviewed younger women, they told us that they often used the term girl. When using it with peers, it may seem normal and natural. Continuing a term they have used most of their life, when they were indeed girls. Where it becomes more awkward is when older and more senior men use the term, which can, intentionally or not, call out females in a demeaning light, as someone not as substantial or not taken as seriously. As we correct their language, we need to also correct our own. If you're the boss. C says, I asked them to repeat what they just said, but substitute boy for girl. 95% of the time, it is impossible for someone to say, there is a new boy who just started in accounting, without laughing. The laughter lightens the mood and emphasizes my point. Lori takes the gentle correction strategy and raises it to a teaching moment. I like to really expand it. Try this. Oh, when you said girl, I got distracted. You mean Allison, the new woman in accounting. Yes, she's excellent. She recently joined us from XYZ Company, and I think her knowledge of working with founders and post-IPO companies is going to be really useful. I've already been in a few meetings with her where I've been so impressed by her extensive knowledge of securities law. If you're the witness. The casual use of sexist language is an opportunity for everyone to participate in the evolution of the company culture. Says Mitzi, this is where allies can play a role correcting the use of words like girl when they hear them, and by role modeling more inclusive behavior. Chapter 2. Father of the Year. When working moms are criticized, and working dads get a trophy. There are many topics for which society sorts men and women into different buckets, but none more polarizing than family responsibilities. Even as we discuss having it all and women in leadership roles, when it comes to family, and most of the time when we say family, we mean children, men and women get very different signals. A survey by Pew Research shows the split. When asked to name the ideal situation for young children, the vast majority of respondents said they should have a mom who worked part-time or didn't work at all. Only 16% said a full-time working mom was ideal. When asked to describe the ideal situation for the mom in that scenario, respondents went even harder on the part-time option. 47% said that was the ideal situation for mom. The same 33% said mom should be at home full-time. And now, only 12% thought mom should hold a full-time job. Then Pew flipped the question. What's the ideal situation for a dad with young children? It wasn't even close. 70% said he should be working full-time. The message in this study could not be more vivid. Women with small children should not work full-time. It's best for everyone, mom and kids alike. It's under this vivid expression of public opinion and experience that women try to move ahead in corporate workplaces. They are juggling work and family responsibilities in the full knowledge that survey after survey thinks they should be spending more time at home. That's hard enough to manage. But in recent years, we see a new trend moving into this discussion. The involved dad. And who can be critical of that? Dads are shrugging off the 1950s image as breadwinners, disengaged from the daily lives of their offspring. They are taking time to show up at soccer games, be home for dinner, and devote time to their families. They are reaching out and claiming their right to be more than a paycheck in the family ecosystem. They are embracing their roles as warm-blooded caretakers. All great. Until you swivel the spotlight back to the office and find that while men are getting accolades for their efforts, and again, that's a positive trend, women are still struggling under a torrent of negativity, and it's coming from all fronts. The boss, colleagues, and that nagging inner critic that tells working mothers they are never, ever going to be enough. This is not a relic of the mid-20th century, when a woman in the workplace was a new idea. This split, in which men are praised for their childcare efforts and women are dinged for the same behavior, is going on now. We had no difficulty sourcing stories from our younger workplace sisters on this topic. Here's one of their takes. One summer, there was a man in the office who made a commitment to be at his son's swim lessons. The lesson was in the middle of the week, in the middle of the day, around 2 p.m. So all summer, this man was gone Wednesdays, midday, to be at his son's swim lesson. He usually didn't come back in and just finished up from home. Everyone was so positive about it. He's at the swim lesson and presenting the next day. What a great dad! And I had to think, women do that every day. How do you talk about the woman who was left early for family reasons?
Sample complete. Ready to continue?